I rarely encounter a ship that I can honestly say surprises me. For the most part, they just sort of meet expectations, or sometimes fail to do so. And sometimes, regardless of what the reality is, we just want to like a ship, so we retroactively develop a reason to do so. A lot of this comes from, at least in my perspective, a value standpoint. We pay X and expect to receive Y. Now, a lot of how we assign value in Star Citizen is skewed, because let's be honest, if you were to walk up to a stranger on the street and tell them how much some of us have paid for our fleets in a video game, you'd likely be laughed at. But I digress. The point is, rarely do we encounter ships that over-deliver in ways you wouldn't expect. But that's exactly what I found in what I believe is one of the most underrated ships in the game, at least from a dollar cost perspective. That ship being the Mustang Beta. In today's review, we're going to take a closer look at what makes the Mustang Beta possibly one of the best bang for your buck value options for new players, or someone just looking to add a zippy little ship to their fleet. That's up next. Welcome back everyone to ForgeCore Gaming. I'm your host Phoenix, and this is my review of the Mustang Beta from Consolidated Outlands. I'll be leaving chapter markers in the description and pinned comment. So if you want to skip certain sections or jump to parts of the video you'd like to rewatch, those are the two places you can do so. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. We're still very much a growing channel, and any likes, subscribes, and comments go a very long way in helping us continue to make great content like the video you're watching. Also, if you'd like to join in on going the extra mile and supporting the channel, the ForgeCore memberships are a really great way that you can make a huge contribution on my journey to becoming a full-time content creator. If you decide to become a channel member, you'll automatically receive 5 times the entries anytime I do ship giveaways. But please be aware that 100% of my content will always be free to watch, so it's completely optional. Now without further ado, let's get into it. Starting off in the usual fashion, let's begin by taking a tour of the Mustang Beta, beginning with the outside. Now, this little Pathfinder, as described by CIG, is admittedly a little outdated in its overall design. The last rework on the design of the Beta was done in 2017 or 2018, and the design capabilities of CIG has gone through multiple evolutions since then, so it is in need of a little update. Even still, the Mustang bears a fairly timeless design, inspired from what I can only imagine is a bird of prey, which can be noted from its side profile closely mimicking certain raptors, whose body profiles in turn mimic raindrops, which are noted to be the most aerodynamic shape there is. This is a good thing. One detail I'm not particularly fond of is the fact that they seem to have extended that bird of prey theme to the wings, but of course absent feathers, and the end result is that all Mustang variants come with these sort of chicken wings, which I get, but I'm just not a fan of it. Now, a good portion of the body is taken up by the all-glass cockpit, which is a huge bonus for sightseers throughout the verse, and we'll touch on that when we get to the flight tests. On the rear of the ship, we can take note of the 2 large primary thrusters, which appear more than ample to propel a ship of this size. After which we can move to the middle of the body that appears as though this is where the component should go, but this ship hasn't had a gold standard pass, so nothing here is functional. But this will likely be updated sooner rather than later, as CIG is actively working to get engineering into the game. If we move to the starboard side, we see there is an external cargo storage compartment, which is great for when you're looting planetary bunkers and you run out of room in your backpack. Under the chin, we can see 2 size 2 guns, which isn't much, but also isn't bad considering this is a starter tier ship. In addition to those 2 size 2 guns, you can add 2 more size 1 guns to the Mustang on either one of the forward wings, which then takes this kinda underpowered ship up a couple of notches into the realm of being actually competitive for its price point. Now we can enter the interior of the ship by moving to the port side of the cockpit and interacting with the hidden ladder. Immediately upon entering, we are sat inside of the pilot seat and are met by a very impressive MFD layout that gives the illusion of us having just one giant screen rather than several separate ones. Each one of the MFDs, of course, can be interacted with independently, and I say this is impressive because all the information held on your MFD array is 100% visible during normal flight operations, which seems like a given to folks who haven't flown a lot of ships, but this is actually a bit of a luxury in my eyes. We're going to skip over the view from this seat for right now because I think you really need to fly this thing in order to appreciate it, but we'll come back to that during the flight test. Moving on, unlike other variants of the Mustang, this is where things get really interesting. If you look over to the right of the pilot seat while holding F, you'll find a button labeled Exit to Rear. And if you do so, you'll stand up behind the pilot seat where you can then enter through the door into the habitation area of the Beta, which in my opinion is pretty astonishing and a real value add for a ship priced at $45. Now again, this ship is old, so some things are a bit off, but everything about it will likely be polished sometime in the future. Take for instance this weird fog or this floating fuse button that doesn't seem to go anywhere. But still, tucked away in the rear of this tiny ship, we have a full habitation area, and not just a bed, we have everything. To the left we have a sink, next to which is what appears to be an induction cooktop of sorts, and if we move further back we have a fully equipped restroom complete with a toilet and a shower. Then of course we have the bed, which can be used for bed logging and shaves roughly 10 to 15 minutes off your game startup time the next time you log in. To me, it's a remarkable use of the space considering the overall small form factor of the Mustang Beta, rivaled really only by the 300 series from Origin Jumpworks, which I covered in another video on my channel. Now this is a real value add for players that prefer full habitation amenities, and though mostly non-functioning for the time being, it is a feature that will prove useful in the future when function is added to both the kitchen and bathroom facilities. Now the Mustang Beta isn't necessarily a statistical powerhouse, but I think it does do well for its weight class. And if we really wanted to squeeze out performance with respect to things like DPS, then we could just sub in all attritions or ardors for the size 2 hardpoints and get our DPS up to a respectable 1420. And just for comparison, we can put it side by side with a couple of ships that are technically pretty close in price. And for this comparison, we'll bring in the Drake Cutter Rambler priced at $50, the RSI Aurora LN priced at $40, and the C8X Pisces Expedition from Anvil Aerospace priced at $45. When it comes to DPS, the Mustang Beta takes a significant lead with the closest competitors being the Aurora LN and C8X Pisces with only 1072. Again, this is a normalized test with every gun set to attritions. When it comes to shields, the Mustang Beta and Aurora LN each tie in first with a max capacity shield of 4,480 HP courtesy of 2 aftermarket Palisade shield generators, whereas the Cutter and the C8X tie for second or last place with a total shield value of 2,280, again courtesy of a single aftermarket Palisade shield generator. Now if we talk about hull HP, the Mustang comes in second place out of the bunch with a fairly decent 9,231 hull HP, but keep in mind, certain parts of the ship are not as durable as others, namely the wings are quite fragile and can break off relatively easily. And in doing so, you can lose access to up to 2 of your 4 weapon hardpoints until you get back to a landing pad to repair. It's not all good though, as the Mustang begins to fall behind in stats when we discuss cargo, whereas it has an official cargo grid of 0, and all of the other 3 competitors have at least 2 SEU of cargo storage, meaning the Mustang inherently loses out on access to certain gameplay loops. Given that the Mustang is definitely on the smaller side of the spectrum, you'd expect it to be fast and nimble whenever you got behind the controls. And you'd be correct. The Mustang has an unboosted nav speed of 225 meters per second, which is definitely fast compared to most ships in the verse. On top of that, its max nav speed is 1200 meters per second, which puts it in the upper limit of performance when discussing tier 1 starter ships. When it comes to pitch, yaw, or roll, it's even more impressive with unboosted rates of 72, 54, and 205 degrees per second respectively. Rates that are high enough to be almost disturbing when you fly it. Without any exaggeration, you can point the Mustang in just about any direction you want, and it'll get there almost immediately. Couple that with its low mass of roughly 38,000 kilograms, and you have a spry little ship that can easily be flown at low altitudes while navigating difficult terrain. On top of that, in the hands of a truly talented pilot, you'd be hard-pressed to be found out of position during dogfights with other similarly sized vessels. Even with all that, the most impressive part of flying the Mustang is the unparalleled view you can get from the driver's seat. From left to right, above, and to some degree down, you have an unhindered view of your surroundings. which is extremely useful when tracking down enemy targets and is equally beneficial when searching for interesting POIs to go explore. Now, we've discussed a great deal about the positives of the Mustang to this point, but every ship in this game comes with a compromise, so now we should dive a little bit into the negative side of things. Starting off, let's discuss this ship's durability, or lack thereof, as the hull HP, though on paper is fairly respectable, does not serve well to keep you alive very long if you venture above VLRT or LRT level bounties. Fact of the matter is, any decent pilot or cracked NPC could make short work of your hull if you were placed in a head-to-head combat scenario. Realistically, the only way to survive most encounters in the Mustang is to spend a lot of attention to not being in front of your enemy, which can prove difficult when you move up to PvE multi-crew ships, as their gunners can cover most angles you'd want to attack from. Moreover, we have to discuss some of the design aspects of the Mustang and how they're fairly detrimental to the pilot. Namely, the 4 wide extending wings. Though fairly good looking while deployed, wings are a curse in the Star Citizen universe due to their tendency to break off at the first sign of an altercation. Losing a wing in this game isn't just cosmetic, in this case, doesn't just cost you a weapon, but can also render your ship effectively inoperable, as you won't be able to stabilize yourself into any sort of real flight trajectory. From my testing, it would seem as though the rear wings have a little bit more influence over the control of the ship, but losing any of the 4 wings would still be a bad thing. Next, as I mentioned earlier, you have no cargo grid, meaning you get locked out of some of the gameplay loops if this is your only ship. On top of that, the only ship storage is on the exterior of the ship, meaning if you want to access stored materials, you have to exit your vehicle, which isn't always possible or convenient. For example, if you want to sort through items while quantum traveling, you can't. Or if you need to refill on some med supplies while on a planet and enemies are outside, going into your ship's inventory would mean exposing yourself to danger. So, a situational yet definite downside. Additionally, besides the interior of the ship, the Mustang doesn't really follow any design language unique to the manufacturer. Albeit, Consolidated Outlands as a manufacturer doesn't really have much of a sample size to choose from. Even still though, the Mustang was designed before the CNOU design language was really solidified, and we can find proof of that in the upcoming Pioneer. There just doesn't appear to be any real relation between the two ships. Unless of course we're looking at the inside, where the Consolidated Outlands design language is very well established, even down to this triangle here, which per relatively recent design discussions involving the Pioneer, are definitely CNOU. Finally, remember how I mentioned that the Mustang had a small form factor? Well, that's mostly true, except for the fact that its wings take up a lot of space. And here's what I mean by that. With the landing gear up, both the front and rear set of wings push the total width of the ship out to 18 meters. That's wider than the Mirai Guardian. And with the landing gear down, the forward wings fold up, raising the height of it to 9 meters, which is just 0.1 meters shorter than the Guardian. Meaning, just because the body is small, it still takes up roughly the same amount as larger fighters if you're wanting to bring one aboard a carrier. It's also fairly long to accommodate the living quarters, so in all 3 dimensions, you wouldn't be saving any space by bringing it along compared to larger, more capable ships. So after spending time with the Mustang Beta, flying it, exploring it, testing it, I have to say, this little ship genuinely surprised me. Not because it outperforms its competitors on every metric, or because it's perfect, it's far from it, but rather because it offers something that very few ships in this price tier do: a sense of completeness. You get respectable firepower, incredible maneuverability, and a full interior living space, all wrapped into a frame that costs less than dinner and a movie for 2. It's not the flashiest ship, it's not the most durable, but it's functional, charming, and honestly, kind of inspiring. Is it the best starter ship in the game? Well, that depends on what you're looking for. But if you're someone who values versatility, immersion, and a little personality in your ship, then the Mustang Beta deserves a second look. It's a ship that quietly over-delivers in a game that constantly evolves, and that's a trait worth paying attention to. So if you're building out a fleet or just getting started in the verse, don't overlook this one. You just might like it as much as I did. Now, if you enjoyed watching this video, I'd like to take a moment and ask that you hit that subscribe button as a free way to support our channel's growth. Also, Hit the like button to help the YouTube algorithm know we did a good job. Finally, don't forget to leave a comment with a ship you would like to see reviewed by us here at ForgeCore. As always, thank you all very much for watching, fly safe out there, and I'll see you in the verse. Phoenix out.